Show me your friend and I will tell you who you are. I never took that saying seriously, but after what Melody and I did, it has become my motto. Like, I don't even know what happened or how it happened, but it happened. I still can't believe I let Melody talk me into doing something that would haunt me till I am 6 feet under the ground. I know you may think I am overreacting or exaggerating, but believe me when I say this. I am not. As it stands now, I have nothing and nobody to my name. Even as I type this, I am still shocked as to how everything turned out. Ladies and gentlemen, the three of us, me, myself and I thought it was a great idea to humor the advice and stupid suggestions of the person we called a friend, and the aftermath of the advice, disastrous. Words cannot even describe how I feel now. I can't even get angry at Melody because if only I had been more careful and behaved more like a wife instead of a silly teenage girl, all this wouldn't have been happening. Ladies and gentlemen, I am writing this from the not-so-comfortable seat in my car. Yes, my car. I could rant all day and beat myself up for years to come, but I want you all to know the full story, and then I would actually like it if you guys judge the matter. I mean, there isn't much to judge, but still I would like it if you guys did. It's currently 12:30 a.m., and I have a meeting in the next 9 hours, and the outcome of that meeting would determine how the rest of my life would go. Now let me take you back to the beginning. When and how I met the woman who made me lose everything over a silly and stupid bet. I don't even know how I would get through this whole story because I would always cry each time I remember everything that has happened to this very moment. Now my tears are that of anger and regret. I really hope I can control my emotions to write this. Now let the journey begin. Hi, my name is Sarah, and I was born as an only girl to a family that already birthed 5 boys. So as you can imagine, I was spoiled silly. We lived in, and to be honest, growing up with boys was quite fun, but I always had that desperate feeling of wanting a sister around me. Someone I could talk with about girl stuff, so you can imagine my excitement when I met Melody, and we immediately clicked. Melody was a blonde while I was a brunette. As a blonde and brunette duo who weren't among the popular and cool kids, we were always hit with jokes from guys during our high school days, but all that changed when we entered college. We both got accepted into Florida State University. I studied theater arts while Melody studied psychology. Now I don't want to make this longer than it should be, but I will tell you that the courses we studied in college really played a huge role in our college and dating lives. We had this thing, or rather the pact we made with each other, and it really worked till we both graduated. The pact was that we wouldn't date till a certain age. To be honest, I don't know why that pact was even made in the first place. We didn't even have any luck with guys till our final year in college, and that was mostly because we both decided that we would start attending parties and go on various adventures that college students go on. It didn't really affect our studies, but I personally feel like Melody changed after all that. Melody had always been a quiet and reserved girl, but once we started attending those parties, she developed a wild side. She would always come back to our hostel wasted and high, or even not come back at all. Don't get me wrong here, I am not trying to say that she was the bad one and I was the good one. Oh heavens, no. If anything, I feel like I was the bad one, but I could control myself and hold down alcohol, but not Melody. She was like a bird that they let out of its cage after years of being inside it. She just wanted to do and try everything. If I decide to talk about all the things Melody and I did in college, then trust me, you would not even be able to drop your phone or PC till the next day, so let's move forward to the next part of my downfall. Now, after we graduated, we both moved into our own place and started working. She worked while I worked in a school by day and at a bar by night. I chose those 2 choices because I wanted to. I've always loved children, but I also love the nightlife, so I figured why not have 2 of them? Things were going really well for both of us, except we couldn't seem to find a decent man to enter a relationship with. All that changed when we met Andre and Louis. Louis and Melody didn't really like each other when they first met. In fact, they hated each other so much even a stranger could feel the hatred between them, but Andre and I feel head over heels in love with each other the very moment we met. Melody wasn't in support of it at first, and even Louis didn't approve of it, but 4 dates and 2 fights later, the 4 of us were seated in a 5-star restaurant having a double date. Just when I thought everything was going well, Andre proposes to me and well, of course I said yes. Why wouldn't I? Louis proposed to Melody at my wedding, and before you start saying that he should have waited till the next day or that he stole the spotlight from me, he didn't. I actually wanted him to do it on that day, and I helped plan everything out. She said yes, and honestly, that just made the wedding 100 times better. Now this is where everything gets interesting. I got married before Melody, but I actually convinced, or rather nagged to Andre that I wanted to have our honeymoon at the same time and place Melody and Lois had theirs. I know. It was too much, and honestly, I don't even know I wanted to do that, but Andre, being the sweet and lovely husband that he is, he agreed to my crazy request, and we postponed our honeymoon till after Melody and Luis's wedding. We both traveled to Rome for our honeymoon, and honestly, it was really nice. We visited many beautiful sites, such as the Trevi Fountain and the Pantheon. We spent some weeks there before coming back to start life as a married couple. As you must have guessed, I resigned from my bar job and focused fully on being a teacher. And boy, was it boring. Don't get me wrong, I love kids, but when you see the same thing every day for 6 months straight, thighs tend to get boring. Melody, on the other hand, kept her job and seemed to enjoy it more now she was married. I don't know why or how that was even possible, but she loved it. We always met up for lunch 3 times a week and dinner with our husbands once a month. It became like a ritual for us, and we loved it. And now, before I go further, it's important to note that I already had a son for my husband while Melody and Louis had decided not to have kids. Well, it was mostly Melody's decision, and Louis loves her too much to say no. That alone should have been my excuse to not go along with Melody's plan. I should have told her that I was a mother and wife. I should have fought harder, but that's the problem. I couldn't fight harder because I didn't fight at all. I just let Melody talk me into it, and I swallowed everything hook, line, and sinker. How weak was I? How stupid no? How dumb was I? You know, it's easier to say yes, a stupid and dangerous plan, if it was coming from someone you trust. Sorry, I digress. I am just so upset that I threw caution to the wind and ended up here typing my life mistakes to strangers online so that they would learn from my mistakes. But enough of all that. Back to the story. On one of our usual lunch dates, Melody came in beaming with joy, and I couldn't tell why. I placed our orders while Melody was on her phone talking to her receptionist. I studied her closely to know if Louis had bought her some new jewelry, but there was nothing new on her. I looked outside, thinking that she had gotten a new car, but I saw her blue Mercedes-Benz parked across the street. I thought maybe she had been promoted, but she was now the head psychologist at the hospital she works in, so a promotion was not possible anymore. There was only one option left, and that was her being pregnant. Yes, maybe she had changed her mind, and now she was pregnant. As the thought crossed my mind, I started smiling, happy that our children would become best friends and maybe even end up as a couple. I was so lost in thought that Melody had to tap my hand in order for her to bring me back to reality. I looked at her and apologized for spacing out. That's fine. I guess I took too long on my call, but it's over and now our lunch date can properly begin, she said while smiling. Our food came and we started eating. While eating, Melody talked about her work and her patients. Yes, I know. The whole doctor-patient confidentiality, but then it's not like I was telling anyone ever, and I am pretty sure that if the tables were turned, I would do the same thing. We talked and laughed till it was 3:30 p.m. and it was time to leave. I was about finishing my drink when Melody reached out and grabbed my hand. I was shocked, so I kept the glass of juice down. I asked her what the matter was, and with a big smile, she told me that she had some wonderful news she wanted to share with me. I chuckled and told her that I already knew that he was pregnant. I was about to tell her that I hoped the child would be a girl when I saw the look on her face and stopped. She had this confused and slightly disgusted look on her face. When I asked her what the matter was, she didn't respond. She just said, "Who told you that ridiculous lie?" I was speechless. So she wasn't pregnant. But why was she so happy? I apologized and explained that I assumed she was pregnant because of the way she had been acting since she arrived. I further told her that I didn't see any new car or jewelry, so I ruled that out, and I knew she couldn't be promoted anymore at her job, so that was also out. Eliminating these two left me with the baby, but if that is also wrong, then what's the matter? After listening to me, she smiled, took my left hand and placed it in between both her hands before saying the words that still haunt me to this day. I had just picked up my glass of juice to drink when she said these words. "I want us to sleep with each other's husband." The moment those words left her mouth, the remaining contents of my mouth found its way to her face. "What the hell? Why would you do that?" she yelled, but not so loud. She began wiping her face while I sat there looking at her. She must be joking. She had to be. I told myself otherwise. Why would she say something so silly and unreasonable? You know, a normal person would have laughed at Melody, gotten up, left the restaurant, gone home, and never speak of it again. But then there's me. The unbelievably stupid character who just sat there and waited for Melody to explain. I mean, what other explanation did I need? It was a stupid idea, and a dangerous one at that. A part of me wanted to shun Melody and warn her never to bring it up, but then another part of me wanted to know how and why she came up with such an idea. "What are you talking about?" I finally asked Melody, and she said that she heard about it from her colleague. She said that her colleague and her sister had done it with their boyfriends, and it was just to test their loyalty. Did you see the keyword there? No? All right, I will tell you. The keyword was boyfriends, not husbands. Boyfriends, and yet my supposed best friend was suggesting something so similar and stupid to me. People of this fine earth, do you know what I did after Melody finished explaining everything to me? I told her that I would think about it and give her my response the next day. That night, as I laid in bed with my husband, I actually thought about how it would feel to share the same bed with Louis. I wasn't a bad wife or anything, but after having that conversation with Melody, my curiosity got the best of me. The next day, I called her up and told her I was going to go through with her plan. She was so happy that she squealed into the phone. She said she would text me the details later before she hung up. As I laid down on my bed, a million thoughts ran through my head, but only 4 words seemed to stand out. What have I gotten myself into? I got her text later that day. She stated that we would become so impossible that our husbands would come to complain to us, but eventually take comfort in us. Melody's husband would come to complain to me about Melody, but over time I would take advantage of his vulnerability and sleep with him. Okay, pause. How in the name of all things beautiful did I even think that any of this was okay? How was it okay to allow your friend to seduce your husband? How was it even okay to think about it? I would have sworn that Melody was a witch if I didn't know her so well. I agreed, and we were meant to start the next day. Now I know my husband and I know how to push his buttons. I did all the things that Andre didn't like and made it seem like Melody was the only one he could complain to about me. The same thing was happening to Louis, and after 3 days, I got a call from Louis complaining that Melody had suddenly changed. He even told me that he suspected her of cheating on him, but I told him that she would not do that to him. Before long, Louis and I started meeting outside to talk about Melody, and I think Andre and Melody also started meeting. Melody and I always meet secretly to go about our plan and to see how everything is going. Although it was hard to treat my baby daddy and husband in such a manner, it was funny to hear about it from him. One day, Melody called me and told me that it was time to seduce and sleep with them. Again, my dumb self did not see the problem with this plan. I didn't shout at her nor demand that she stop. Instead, I agreed and waited for my usual meetup with Louis, but asked him to come over to the house. Andre was going to be with Melody, so I had the house to myself all night. I had dropped my son at my parents' house, so it was just the 2 of us. When Louis arrived, I brought out a bottle of wine and poured a glass for each of us. After his 3rd cup, Louis was already drunk, but not too drunk not to know when to stop. The both of us were on the floor talking when we started leaning close to each other. This was it, I thought. Louis would remember how much he loved Melody and stop. The only problem was, he wasn't stopping and neither was I. What was happening? Why wasn't I stopping? I didn't stop when our lips met. I didn't stop when we got up from the floor, and I didn't stop till the only thing I could see and hear was nothing. I woke up the next morning, but there was no Louis. As I tried to recall what happened, I heard the tap running in the bathroom. I noticed that I was completely naked and immediately reached for the bedcloth to tie around my body. Almost immediately, the events of the previous night flood my mind and I almost fall down. What have I done? I had cheated on my husband. I got up and moved to the bathroom. I knocked on the door and said, "Louis, come outside, we need to talk about late." But before I could finish my sentence, my husband came out of the bathroom tying a towel on his waist. I froze. What was happening? Why was he back so soon? Did he see Louis? All these thoughts ran through my head, but I was interrupted by Andre's voice. "What happened to Louis?" he asked while drying his hair. Oh, nothing. Nothing. He had called me last night to talk about Melody and the gift he wanted to get her, but I dozed off on him, so I felt bad and wanted to finish the conversation. I lied. He looked at me and down at my hand before saying, But you don't have your phone. I froze, but then remembered that I was wearing one of my AirPods, so I pointed to it and said I was leaving a voice message for him. Stupid, I know, but somehow it worked, and soon Andre left for work. The moment he left, I called Melody, but she didn't pick up. I tried again, but it went to voicemail instead. I panicked and was scared for the worst. What if Louis saw Andre driving out of his house and confronted Melody? I immediately took a shower and drove to Melody's place. I noticed that her car wasn't there, so I went to her workplace. I was so relieved to see her car, but even more relieved to see Melody, and she was all right. I pulled her aside and asked her where her phone was. She told me that she left it at home. She had an early appointment that she couldn't miss. I heaved a sigh of relief, but then told her that we needed to talk. She asked me to wait for her since it was almost her lunch break, and I agreed. Once Melody was free, we went to a cafe, sat down, then I broke down. I told Melody what happened, and she didn't seem bothered or upset. Her face just went blank. She didn't say anything. She just got up, slapped me, and left. I'm still seating in my car, in front of the cafe. My left cheek still stings from the slap. I'm afraid to go home. What if Andre finds out? What if Melody tells him? Did Melody not go through with her plan? And where was Louis? Guys, that's where I stop for now. I'll update you all if anything happens. Hey guys, it's me again. I have an update for you guys, and to be honest, it's quite a lot, but I promised to give you guys an update, so here it is. Now, the last time I wrote something, I had just been slapped by Melody inside a cafe, and I didn't know if I should go home or not. After an hour of just sitting in my car, I decided to go home. I got home and Andre was home, but something felt off. Andre wasn't his usual self. He seemed distant and cold towards me. What if he knows now? I asked myself. I couldn't bring myself to ask him, so I just let it be. After dinner, Andre took a bath and got into bed. Next thing I knew, he was cuddling me. I was confused and asked him if he was all right. He said he was fine and that he just had a rough day at work, but being with me just made everything better. I smiled and let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. He didn't know. I was safe. The next day was normal with Andre. The moment he left for work, I tried to call Melody, and to my greatest surprise, she picked the call. What? She answered. Mel, we need to talk, I said softly. Mel was a name I always called her when I wanted us to fix things between us. We agreed to meet at the park, and once we saw each other, I started crying. Next thing I knew, Melody started crying too. She apologized for slapping me and also told me that she had slept with Andre too. I was shattered, but at least now she would call it quits to this silly game of hers, and she did. I asked her if Louis acted strange to her, but she said no. Melody said that Louis had been acting normal as though nothing happened. That was the main reason she slapped me. She was hurt that Louis could easily keep his infidelity from her. Yes, I know. She was actually trying to play the victim. But when I told her about Andre, she kept quiet. We talked for another 30 minutes before going back to our houses. I finally thought that everything was fine now. Oh, how wrong I was. The disaster. One day I got a call from Louis, asking me to meet him. I didn't want to, but then he threatened to tell Andre what happened, and I was left with no choice. I told him to meet me at the park the next day. When Louis came, he looked terrible. He had eye bags under his eyes, his hair was messy, and he just looked off. I asked him what happened, but he wouldn't say anything. After 3 minutes of silence, he grabs my hands and says, I can't take this anymore. Sarah, I need you. Huh? I retrieve my hands and shift a bit before asking him what he meant. He told me that he hasn't been able to think straight since that night. He said he tried to forget everything, but he couldn't. He proceeds to go down on his knees to beg me. I couldn't take it anymore. I just ran. Ran to my car, then drove home not caring that I left him on his knees in a public place. I didn't know what to do. Should I call Melody? Would she even believe me? Would she believe that the very man that worshipped the ground she walked was asking me to be his? No, she wouldn't believe me. I can't even believe it. But what do I do? What? I was so lost in thought that I didn't hear Andre walk in. I had already put our son to sleep, so it was just me in the living room. Andre came in and gave me a peck on my cheek. The moment he came close, I perceived something, but I couldn't wrap my head around what it was at that moment, so I just let it go. That night was so passionate for both of us that I immediately forgot about Louis and his confession. The next day was a Sunday, and Andre informed me that he would be taking a work trip in the next 4 days. I had no issues with it. At least it would give me time to think about Louis and his issues. Melody and I didn't talk for some days, and I was worried Louis told her how he felt about me. I really wished everything would just go back to normal, but sadly, that would never work. On the day of Andres' work trip, he left for the airport around 8 a.m., so you can imagine my surprise when Louis called to see me at his place. I refused to come, then he offered to take me somewhere else. I realized that I had to turn him down once and for all, so I decided to meet him. We met at what seemed to be a small bed and breakfast. I told him that I didn't want to be there, but he said all he wanted to do was talk and that once it's over, I would never hear from him again. I didn't understand his last statement, but I agreed. Ladies and gentlemen, what I saw and heard was not, and I repeat, not what I expected. Just behind the door was Melody snuggling with my husband, the one who was meant to be on a work trip. The moment Melody saw me, she jumped off him and asked me what I was doing there. "What am I doing here? Why are you here with my husband?" I shouted. Melody was about to speak when Louis slammed the door and ordered us both to sit down and keep quiet. Now Andre got up and walked up to me and said, "Your husband? The same husband you allowed your friend to seduce?" The moment he said that, my eyes widened. He knew. "Yes, I know. Matter of fact, we both know," he said while pointing to Louis. "You both thought we wouldn't figure out a pattern? There was no way you both would suddenly start acting up at the same time. We wanted to know what the goal was, and sadly you showed us. You see, that night you had your steamy session with Louis, we both saw it coming. I saw it coming, but I wanted to see how far you'd actually go." As he said those words, tears filled my eyes and I started apologizing. "What are you sorry for? You didn't sleep with Louis. Yes, you see, unlike you, Louis has some self-respect. I was the one you slept with, but I wore Louis's clothes and smelt like him. Luckily, you were too drunk to even notice." Upon hearing this, Melody started laughing. "You're lying. I was with you the whole night, remember?" she said shamelessly. "No, my dear, you fell asleep and I went home. Oh, and did. You tell your friend that you have been trying to seduce me way before all this." The moment he said this, I looked at Melody, but she didn't say a word. "Oh yes, your wonderful friend here has been trying to lure me to bed, and she came up with this stupid plan as the perfect way to get me. But she wanted to keep me forever. That's why I lied that I was going to leave you for her. She immediately got the divorce papers signed and left Louis. Now back to the same quest I asked earlier. Your husband? Oh no, I'm sorry, but this marriage is over and I am taking my son with me." Without another word, he walked out with Louis, and I haven't seen him or my son. I still have the divorce papers, but I can't sign it. I don't know what happened to Melody after all that. And to be honest with you, I really hope she never sees happiness ever again. That's all, guys. There's no more update. I lost my son, husband, and house in all this mess. Guess I deserved it, though.